Psychological horror, a subgenre of horror games that focuses on, well, psychologically stressful situations, rather than pure violence, gore, and jump scares. It's a way of horror that can very often fail tremendously, but sometimes, and only sometimes, be the most powerful way to tell a story. Some examples that come to mind is the Silent Hill franchise, as well as Pathologic or Visage, but more relevant to this video, a series of games you might have heard about called Amnesia. The Amnesia games have always presented themselves to look like normal survival horror games, with a scary monster, a flashlight, simple objectives like pulling levers, and of course scary dark hallways. But to anyone who has played them for themselves, or watched a Markiplier video, they are reality-bending games about trauma, loss, and forgetting. The notable entries like The Dark Descent shined back in the day, with the newest entry of The Bunker being a successful hit too. However, there is one Amnesia game I personally never heard about until recently. A game that steered off the usual formula of the other ones. A game by the name of Amnesia, a machine for pigs. Whoa, wait. Isn't Machine for Pigs like the second Amnesia game? Why not cover Dark Descent, man? Shh. The games aren't connected. I just thought this one was cooler. Machine for Pigs was released in 2013 and made by the Chinese Room, a British studio previously known for games like Dear Esther, as well as other more narrative-driven games with less complex survival mechanics and a larger focus on atmosphere and storytelling. In Dear Esther, you play as an unseen, unnamed narrator, walking on a desolate Scottish island as he reflects on a tragic story. Opinions of the game were relatively mixed, as it was just a walking simulator that told you a story, and as most people play horror games to be scared, the Chinese Room made games more for people with patience. Hey, we made a game for you! Yep. Just go over there. Just keep walking, you'll get it eventually. Amnesia first broke through with its scary gameplay that you might have seen in a PewDiePie video with The Dark Descent. As opposed to Machine for Pigs, while that game was still a psychological horror, it featured lots of gameplay that could still be grasped without deeply understanding the story. The reason for this is that the first Amnesia game wasn't made by the Chinese Room, it was made by Frictional Games, who handed over the development of this game to focus on other titles like Soma. This is why Machine for Pigs is such a unique experience, as that was what the Chinese Room was known for. And while it still does feature puzzles, the game is much more driven by the story, music, and atmosphere. Now, with all that said, grab some snacks because it's time to dive in. He who makes a beast of himself removes himself from the pain of being human. That quote by Samuel Johnson is the first thing we see, followed by the voice of an older man saying, "Daddy, please don't kill me." The average voice message I get from my friends after blowing up my base in Minecraft. We are then witness to a pattern of electricity as some sort of machine is slowly revealed through dim red lights, until we hear another voice, this one of a child. We then wake up from a nightmare in a dark bedroom. So dark that my stream's bitrate reduced the video quality to straight up pixel art. Our name is Oswald Mandes, an amnesiac who works as an industrialist, even owning his own meat processing factory that he inherited from his family. Currently, he is searching for his two sons, whose names we learn soon after walking into the next room.
You lived long enough to see Edwin, but not Enoch.
The Amnesia games all share the theme of the phenomenon by the same name. Amnesia, a significant loss of memory caused by brain damage, illness, or severe psychological trauma. For an unknown reason right now, this is what Mandes is suffering with, which hinders his memory and our ability to identify what is real or an illusion. Personally, I think this concept is very unique. In most psychological horror games, we play someone who basically just hallucinates ghosts and whatever, to then slowly reveal the truth behind their trauma or past. A big example of this being Outlast 2. I made a video about that game, by the way. You should check it out. And while in most titles these hallucinations are basically a product of their guilt, trauma, or just game logic, the Amnesia games are based on a real thing. And while there are definitely some supernatural elements in these games, this factor makes the experience feel much more realistic somehow. Our wife, Lily Mandes, is not here either, and except for Mr. Mandes himself, this house is pretty much empty, raising questions as to where everyone is. Anyways, we eventually reach this attic where we find our light source for the game, the lantern. While picking up the lantern, we also see our kids running by, or at least we think we do. We proceed to make our way through this attic until we arrive here. Walk down a staircase to arrive at this area where we hear a piano playing a soft melody, which after a slight earthquake with machinery sounds turns into church bells. We then go into here where we find a phone calling for us, as we hear a strange voice on the other side.
Precious eagle cactus fruit, help us.
This voice will be a reoccurring theme in this game. This anonymous outsider talking to Mandes through these phones, as well as even speakers later on. What he said, precious eagle cactus fruit, might sound like gibberish, but it actually has a symbolic meaning that I will get into later. Upon then shifting this rifle on the wall, we enter this crawl space area, showing how the paintings in various rooms, including even the bathroom, are one-way windows. That, including the fact that our bed is a literal cage we woke up in, are signs that something's not quite right here. Anyways, now we are finally in the main area of this mansion. We hear some squealing, roaring sound or whatever. Then as we get down the stairs, we see our children running away and shouting for us. It still isn't clear why we are even following these kids. They basically just told Mandes to follow them and we are just obeying, I guess. The main door is locked, so instead we begin exploring these dark halls, showing how wealthy Mandes must be with an indoor bar, a long beautiful dining room, detailed carpets, not to mention the sheer scale of this house. This sort of manor in the late 1800s is extremely rare, only seen among highly powerful and rich people, giving us some insight into Mandes' character. At one point another one of these phones call us, as the strange voice from before speaks to us about our children, telling us they are down in the machine below and the only way to set them free is by repairing and reactivating it, because apparently it has been sabotaged. This is also the first time Mandes speaks out loud.
Who are you? Where are my children?
And I would really like to give credit here regarding the voice acting. The issue with having a voice actor for a horror game is that you're usually playing as someone who is alone. And as people don't usually talk to themselves about what they are doing, the voice actor can sometimes be a bit unnecessary.
Hey, it's that dog.
Recently I played the Outlast games, and in the first one there wasn't any lines for the main character, something that initially was the same time in development, but to me made the game much more immersive. The scare factor in horror games rely on the player being immersed, which is why most horror games are in first person, having detailed sound design and so on. The less characteristics this protagonist has, the more it feels like you, the player, is the one in the action. So when the main character has a bunch of unnecessary lines, like, I need to go over there, which no one would actually say, it kinda takes away from the experience in my eyes. Mandes, however, does have a voice actor, but it's done in a realistic way. He only ever speaks when talking to someone, and otherwise he is completely quiet, writing down his notes in his journal, giving both the narrative benefit of having moments where our character speaks, but also keeping us immersed in between those scenes. Eventually we arrive in this bathroom, where upon removing this painting we can pull a lever to reveal a crawl space behind the wall. Going through here we uncover what seems to be part of a factory right underneath the mansion, and after pulling this valve here, we continue to search for the second one. But unfortunately I am trash at video games, so finding it was a struggle. Now we are talking. Down there. Boom. Oh my god. Is that a pig? Was that a pig? Machine for pigs? Is it like an achievement for turning on all the lights? I jump in here. Can do. Okay, I'm not supposed to put it here. Jump. Okay. I'm doing the wrong thing. What the fuck is that? What's this ominous car with teeth in it beside your sink? Okay. Yeah, chat, I might need your help. Okay, I'm just going somewhere. I'm following the voices in my head right now. Okay, guys, can you just be honest with me? Am I stupid? Am I like dumb? Am I like insane. I put a chair there. Why? I am a very intellectually unfortunate man. Okay, I'm obviously in the wrong area. 44 people watching a Swedish man have a mental breakdown playing Amnesia and actually getting Amnesia in real life. You have to go into the room with a spider. There's a hidden room there. Okay, we'll go over here. Okay, so everyone get ready for a hidden room. If this was a Resident Evil game... As we find this obvious path to the second valve, we can eventually go through the courtyard and arrive in an industrial basement, on a path that leads us outside. Wow, I love London. Let's go inside again. Now we are in the cellar. Here we have some generator things that need fuses to work. Once again we get a call from the unnamed voice, this time telling us that the random earthquakes we are feeling are the attempts of draining a flooding in the machine. The same machine that apparently our children are stuck in. We are then also told that we need to go through a set of tunnels to get to the sewers to then drain the water ourselves. At one point we rotate this crank, go down some stairs and experience what it feels like to live in an apartment underneath an Eastern European Counter-Strike player. We then also see this pig-human hybrid creature running away, and it's actually not the first time we've seen one of these, as we witness a similar event in the mansion. These pig creatures, known as man-pigs, are something we will see a lot more, and are actually not a figment of our imagination, but the actual workers of this facility. More on that later. Eventually, after activating 3 of those machines, we can access this decontamination room. Basically a complicated old airlock that we will see again a few times later. On the other side, we get to this place, which leads us outside again. Our way further is through this gate that is blocked by a truck. So in order to move on, we have to go in here and get a gas canister, go back here and fill it with gasoline, go back to the truck and insert it to then spin the crank down here. Sure love those puzzles. This is when we enter St. Dunstan's Church, a real-life building adapted to the game that was built after St. Dunstan, a bishop of Worcester and London. At this moment, the music also truly kicked in. Whenever I cover a game, I always want to make a note of the music, and the soundtrack for Machine for Pigs is probably one of the most beautiful OSTs I've heard in a horror game. Composer Jessica Curry also made the soundtrack for Dear Esther, where the songs demanded a slow, unobtrusive theme to fade in and out as the player explored the island. Soft piano chords and violin strings that accompanied the nature, which kinda reminded me of how Minecraft music would fade in and out at random times while building a house or exploring. That game wasn't for intense gameplay and didn't even feature a running mechanic, only allowing the player to walk around this island while watching and listening. Here, the game is a horror game with melancholic but also existentially horrifying themes, with music that isn't afraid to direct the mood single-handedly. Here, the music kicked in for the first time in a while, with an organ song that feels like we are ascending, elevating the feeling of the game, and for me was the moment I realized that this isn't just some regular walking simulator. We navigate through this chapel, finding dead pigs at the altar, candles blown out, and a phonograph, replaying a conversation between Mandus and someone else.
Your faith shackles your vision, Professor. It is an iron coffin that keeps you from grasping the future. We require a new deity, one of steam and the wheel, of magnetism and progress. The old god is nothing more than a lamed hog, spitting back offal at mankind.
We see a candle missing at the end, and after retrieving it in a back room and turning the candles both, we are able to go in here and open a secret staircase beneath the altar. This chamber is dark, very dark. Dark enough to make any YouTuber's capture bitrate quit its job and start a meth empire from an RV. Even so dark that the wiki here said, and I quote, "Here, bring your flashlight, as it is very dark in this area. Gamma alone isn't enough." We see another zombie pigman and are required to make our way past it to move on, which for me went just swimmingly. Ow! I'm outside the map. I don't think this is what is supposed to happen in this game. I'm gonna jump out. Anyways, finally we make it past and arrive at the factory. I think it's time I recap some story of this game I haven't mentioned yet. Remember how I said that Mandus has amnesia, but didn't really elaborate much? Well, amnesia is a phenomenon with a cause, a reason as to why it appears. So far in the game, we have basically walked around blindly, but at this point we can start to puzzle together the few documents and voice notes we have found. There are 5 sources of information and lore in this game. First off, we have Mandus' journal, that basically states the same thing the player is thinking. Then there's the ghost children, running around chatting to us about some stone egg. The telephones where some unknown guy guides us to the machine where our children are supposedly stuck. Then we have the documents, all written in Old English that really tested the ability of my English skills. Replacement is dissatisfactory, so like a pump. Better call Saul. Already hosting intrusion in the bread. And finally, there's the phonographs that have recorded an old conversation between Mandus and a man that goes by Professor A. The conversation seems to have occurred not long ago, when this professor visited Mandus in his home. At first, we heard Mandus asking to record it, upon the professor agreeing, followed by confirming that he has been sent by the ministry, which is basically a rifle club that Mandus is in, hence his collection of muskets and wild game. The professor later said how awful Mandus looks, as he replied that he must have picked up some kind of disease from his time in Mexico, some trip he went on recently. The professor then complimented Mandus' work with his factory, with a slight suspicious tone of wonder as to how he has been able to do this alone. Mandus replied with a slight deflection, talking about how his recent grief drove him to work harder, which actually refers to his wife, who died when she was giving birth to his twin sons. An event that hit Mandus hard, and it's also the event that he described in the beginning.
I held your hand and watched the blood pool between your legs. You lived long enough to see Edwin, but not Enoch.
The conversation then shifted towards religion within society. Mandus believes that religion is useless and that humans would be more efficient without it. How priests in power are corrupt and too much money is going to the church. The professor replies logically, describes how removing religion from a society is to remove their faith, and in some cases even their only hope of happiness. How some people in unfortunate lives only live to see heaven one day. To which Mandus replies that paradise doesn't need to wait. It can be brought forth right now with just a small sacrifice. What is that sacrifice? What happened when he was in Mexico? Where are his children? Well, I guess you have to stick around. We exit the church and walk through this alley to the factory entrance. Past the lobby in the manager room, we get to another call from our friend, warning us we won't exactly be alone down there, as this is where those man pigs reside. The first area here consists of 6 furnaces that are used to power the factory. The telephone man stated before that the reason we even have to fix this machine is due to some sort of saboteur that flooded the machine, took out the fuses of those generator things, as well as took out the coal from 3 of these furnaces. Upon loading those with coal once more, however, we alert some Rust players to our location. And have to avoid them while making our way to this secret passage under the machinery. Walking on the coal and soot of this conveyor belt, we go to take this dumbwaiter which leads us to the tunnels.
You're in the right place here, buddy.
Here we arrive to another telephone call, to which we are told to hurry up. Okay man, relax. Up here we have a padlocked door that we need to get through, and as the key is lost to the abyss somewhere, we instead need to get a container of Compound X. Compound X is a very relevant component to the lore of this game, as of course every horror story needs some kind of magic new element to allow the strange things we see to be possible. Something also prevalent in games like Bendy and the Ink Machine, Fast Goo from Final Nights at Freddy's, and of course Jivanium from the well-esteemed and amazing horror game Garden of Banban. Compound X is a liquid created from something called Vitae, as well as orgone monad dispersal fluid. Vitae is basically a mystery substance that humans secrete during moments of great stress, such as torture for example, and can apparently be used to extend life. And the orgone dispersal fluid is a chemical of unknown origin with cooling properties. Compound X itself is the element that combines human cells with pig cells, which is the process used by the machine below to create these man pigs. It's also said that the compound is flammable, toxic, corrosive, and highly reactive to light. Something we see with the man pigs as when shining our lantern on them, they enrage and try to attack us. It also has this weird aura that affects electrical devices, which we also see as whenever a man pig is near, it causes the lights to flicker, making our lantern blink like a ghost is hunting us in Phasmophobia. To create this thing, we need to power this centrifuge down here, which requires us to retrieve the two different cans of fluid. The first path leads us to this disperser, and upon putting a can into this pipe that sends it back to the centrifuge, we are chased by a man pig on our way out. I love this note on the wiki here, saying try not to die during this chase, as the person writing the wiki somehow got soft locked that way, so just don't die. In the second path, we avoid another man pig, and send the other can through here. Then our way out is blocked by steam, so we have to go here and, according to the wiki, turn it off magically. I love this fandom so much. Returning to the centrifuge, we insert both cans of fluid. Then we take this can of compound X and pour it on the lock, to then point this dentist lamp on the substance to make it corrode the metal and open the door, making our way down a hole to enter the sewers. This section mainly consists of us having to pull certain valves and switches while running around avoiding these enemies, which I thought were something swimming underwater, but it's actually invisible man pigs who just can't leave the water. Anyways, instead of me explaining this section step by step, here is a montage. Enjoy.
I think I need a break. Don't care how long it takes. You know I hate the way you make me feel so dark. You really put my heart. You open up my spine. I think I need a
Making our way out of the sewers, we arrive at the bilge, which is basically the area that stores the rotten water and junk. Wait. I wonder what Financier for this 4 isn't here. We arrive here to see the pumps being inactive and the water has flooded the lower level. Mandus has by this point realized he needs to get to the reactor in order to fix the machine. But on our way there, a catwalk collapses and we fall into the green water with invisible electric man pig chasing us as we have to rush for the ladder. When we get up, we have to insert some cogwheels here. And while I do so and raise the catwalks in a flooded room to move on, I want to tell you some fun facts about Amnesia, a machine for pigs. Number 1. While the first game has both an inventory system, a sanity meter mechanic, and the need to find oil to fuel your lantern, this game completely removed all of that. Number 2. This game features a lot of pig metaphors. One thing being the literal pig people, but also things like Mandus calling people a hog as an insult in some previous conversations. Number 3. This game is the shortest Amnesia game, at only 4 to 6 hours long. And while it took me only 5 hours to play it on my first playthrough, my second one took only 3. Number 4. A Machine for Pigs was initially meant to be simply a mod called We Are the Pig, but Frictional Games liked the concept and collaborated with them to extend the budget and development time from 1 to 2 years. Number 5. You should subscribe to my channel. Anyways, we get through this airlock and get to an elevator that finally takes us down to see the machine for ourselves. While descending, this amazing song begins to play as we finally see it. A massive metallic construction with large pipes stretching in all directions. A massive machine that we are so close to turning on. Getting down to the catwalk, Mandus speaks out in disbelief.
Oh dear God. Dear Christ, what is this place?
Going through here, we find that the saboteur has closed this pipe thing, but upon opening it and flipping every switch in the world, the machine is ready to be reactivated. Going back to it and walking up the stairs, we arrive in a room with levers that does just that. And upon switching both, this happens.
Now, Mandus, set them free. Set them all free. I live. I breathe again. I will rise to bleach the sky and still the water. I will spin the world wheel and set the future upon the path to redemption.
Where are my children? You promised me my children!
My time is come. More pig. More pig.
Boys, I'm sorry.
Manda's children were always dead, and Mandus had no hope of ever saving them. The person on the telephone wasn't even a person at all, rather the machine itself that's apparently sentient, manipulating Mandus to fix it so it can fulfill its own agenda, which is basically to end humanity. Something we are about to witness firsthand. So wait. Who was the saboteur? It was Mandus. We sabotaged the machine and forgot about it, and now we have basically just pressed Ctrl Z a bunch of times to get it working again. Realizing that we have been tricked, we immediately start sabotaging it once again. This time, however, doing unrepairable damage to it while it is trying to stop us. We also know for sure now that at some point in the past, Mandus' two twin sons died, with the ghosts now depicting blood pouring from their mouths and pulling out their own hearts. Mandus is seemingly still suppressing this information, as he keeps asking this machine where his children are, upon which it admits to the lie.
Why'd you ask, Mandus? You know the answer well enough.
Taking out some fuses to ruin the control panel, we eventually navigate to this area where we have to destroy glass and remove parts to shut off this pink gas in the pipes, all while simultaneously avoiding a bunch of man-pigs. The man-pigs seems to work for the machine, and are basically a form of manual labor and guard. So once we turn off the gas and climb through the pipes, they repair it in real time, which turns on the gas after us and forces us to hurry up to not be boiled alive, as we then arrive at another elevator, this one taking us back outside.
God, no, what have I done?
The man-pigs are released on the streets of London, killing innocents without even a warning, causing bodies to pile up in the middle of the street. Houses are on fire, and the street sounds like a battlefield, with gunshots and explosions, with screams echoing in all directions. The machine speaks to us through hidden speakers, calling this our doing and that this is what Mandus wanted, upon him pleading back for it to stop.
No! This is not what I meant! This is not what I meant at all!
At one point we are chased by a man-pig and manage to escape by the skin of our teeth. As we finally find an elevator that will once again take us down. As our goal for this whole game so far is basically flipped on its head, with Mandus deciding he needs to stop the machine for good. Once again, there's a lot of stuff going on. I know, but I will explain later, I promise. Arriving with the elevator down at a section known as the pig lines, we see human torsos being moved like a product. Here's a fun fact: these torsos are being taken to the machine to be infused with compound X, which is basically how the man-pigs are made. That's what the whole machine is, by the way, creating man-pigs to end the world. It's basically just a big ass pig spawner. We, not wishing for the world to end, want to stop this. However, this panel with all the controls we want to destroy is being guarded. To eliminate this guard, we go over here, shove a barrel into the cogs which floods the area with compound X, turn a spotlight on this canister here which makes it electric, creating a dangerous current that kills the man-pig. Then pointing away the spotlight so we can jump down without dying. After then showcasing what it feels like to open Blender for the first time. We meticulously and safely turn the pig lines off. And boom, no more pigs. I lied, there's more pigs. Moving on, we hear a flashback of the conversation between Mandus and Professor A, specifically how it ended.
I must say, Mr. Manders, my excitement is almost unseemly.
Yes, I can see that. Step this way, Professor. I will be right behind you.
Manders? Manders, where the devil are you? I can't see a damn thing. Manders! We are the pig, Professor.
Wait, why did Mandus kill that guy? I think you already know what I'm gonna say. Anyways, listening to that was cool. But here are our children, ripping out their hearts again, which makes Mandus black out. We then awaken in an ocean of blood. No, not that one. In the middle, we find an elevator, and we use it to descend even deeper, making our way to the very core of this factory once and for all. For this last real gameplay section of the game, I was going to make like an edit montage thing for you guys, but unfortunately, my footage from streaming this section has less pixels than a Terraria character, so blame OBS, okay? There's not really much to say, however. We get down to a very dark sector with these giant tubes of what I assume to be that orgone dispersal stuff. We mainly walk through here, climb some ladder, get to this section where the lights turn off and we have to turn them on while avoiding this Superman pig called a Tesla, having a literal Tesla fused to it, sparkling lightning and warping in and out of invisibility. Oh, and also it can teleport? Oh my... Don't worry though. Upon turning this lever, we flip the lights on and it just evaporates. Magically. As we arrive on this bridge in the middle of an abyss, Mandus had asked the machine why it took his children, as to which the machine responded that it didn't, that the first drop of blood was spilled by Mandus himself, confirming that Mandus actually game-ended his own children. So far in the game we have in numerous occasions heard about Mandus' recent trip to Mexico, but now I'll finally explain it. As I said before, Mandus was an esteemed businessman and engineer, who lost his wife during the birth of his twin sons. When this happened, he got depressed and fixated on work, specifically safety protocols and unnecessary contraptions. This damaged his business heavily, causing him to fall into debt and worsening his depression even more. In his desperate attempt to find any sort of old family treasure to save himself, he discovered the journal of his great uncle Daniel, the character we play as in Amnesia: The Dark Descent. In that game, Daniel encountered this magic orb that has all kinds of crazy properties, and apparently there existed more of these orbs around the world. The specific location of one being in a temple in Mexico, even being written down. Mandus saw these coordinates and hoped there would be some great hidden wealth to save his business, and then took his sons to travel there some time later. When finally arriving at the temple, Enoch and Edwin found the orb first and described it as a stone egg that once held up to the ear would sound like an ocean.
Hold the egg to your ear. You can hear the sea.
Mandus was then handed the orb, but upon contact it showed him a brief glimpse into the future, specifically the one about the Battle of the Somme in World War I, seeing his twin sons both meet a horrific and painful death. Mandus didn't want this for them, and to save them from this fate, he killed them himself. Yup, slimed them out then and there. In his words, this was to save them from a painful death, but like... you could have just warned them or something, man. Anyways, he took both their heads as well as some disease with him back to London. And after all this great loss, he spiraled into a hatred for humanity. Saw what would happen in the 20th century and began to think of humans as nothing better than pigs. This is when he himself created this machine, adopting orphans and kidnapping homeless people to work for him, who all eventually died, upon which he sacrificed their bodies to it. He eventually also began to even sacrifice rich people, having them over for dinner and letting them sleep in his cage beds. These sacrifices are essentially what powers the machine, specifically their souls and blood. Now, why does the machine have sentience? Well, because when making the machine, Mandus' hate for humanity cemented itself as a better part of him, even becoming his second half. Mandus then sacrificed part of his soul to power it, which I believe he does using the orb. I don't know. Meaning the machine is also Mandus, specifically the embodiment of his hate towards humanity. But with this hate transferred to the machine, Mandus began to lose his hate and saw empathy again. This led him to feel regret and try to sabotage it, trying to stop this apocalypse of his own doing, which he succeeds with. And it was after doing all of that he went back to bed with a fever. Overridden with trauma and disease at the same time, he woke up with no memory of anything, leading to the events of the game. On this bridge we hear him come to terms with it, that he himself is a monster, and that the only way to stop this machine is by sacrificing himself to it.
You may hate me, Mandus, but I have seen the future, your 20th century, and let me tell you this, a far greater slaughter awaits you there. I seek to save the world by blood now, before millions fall beneath history.
We find this heart held up by metal rods, although I'm still not sure who this heart belongs to. Activating the coils on this upper level and going down to it, we are teleported.
Oh, God help me. I am lost in the dried paper soul of the world.
Teleported to a long walk to shut down the machine. The machine pleads for him to wait, pleads for the man-pigs to stop him, yet Mandus, having made his decision, keeps on walking. His wife died giving birth to his twin sons. His grief and depression doomed his business. He went to find a solution, but all he found was a glimpse into the future, a future in which his sons died a painful, slow death. And after ending their lives to spare them the suffering, he grew cold, grew a hatred for humanity as a species, built a machine that fed on life, sacrificed orphans and beggars because no one would look for them, a professor who visited for his own well-being because he knew too much, because he disagreed, because he was human, eventually coming face to face with an Aztec temple, a one-to-one replica of the one he found the orb in, and he begins to make the ascent.
I have stood knee-deep in mud and bone and filled my lungs with mustard gas. I have seen 2 brothers fall. I have lain with holy wars and copulated with the autumnal fallout. I have dug trenches for the refugees. I have murdered dissidents where the ground never thaws and starved the masses into faith. A child's shadow burnt into the brickwork. A house of skulls in the jungle. The innocent Mandus trod and bled and gassed and starved and beaten and murdered and enslaved. This is your coming century. They will eat the Mandus. They will make pigs of you all, and they will bury their snouts into your ribs, and they will eat your hearts.
On the top of the stairs, after having listened to a speech from the other half of our own soul, we sit down, pressing the button to deactivate the machine and subsequently letting it rip out our own heart.
And as the dust settled on my open eyes, and we lay together embraced forever, I heard, miles above us, the sounds of the city turning over in its sleep. And in that moment, the new century was born.
And that's it. Personally, I loved this game. I know the reception was a bit mixed on release, specifically by people who wanted a more gameplay-driven experience like the first game, but I actually thought the puzzles and chases of this game did a really good job. I feel like the Chinese room's style really succeeded here. As a walking sim, which you could argue this is a really difficult style of game to pull off. With less direct inputs and survival elements, the game has to really entertain the player in some other way, and machine for Pigs does that using these different sources of information. 1 second you see your kids, then a phone call tells you where you need to go. On the way you found a phonograph that continues the side story you've been listening to. All the while you can read Manda's journal if you're lost. Sometimes there doesn't even need to be some grand thing happening, just a cool visual while letting the soundtrack do its thing. People always criticize walking simulators for the lack of gameplay, and even the term walking simulator is something of a negatively spawned phrase. But I believe that if you have the patience and a will to pay attention, appreciate a deep story, soundtrack and visual scenes, you might come to enjoy them a bit more. Some other good ones being Layers of Fear or even Still Awakes the Deep, a really good game by the Chinese room that I will probably cover someday. The biggest highlight of this game in my opinion was the final monologue, however, something a lot of people loved. Listening to the machine describe the horrors of what humanity will do to each other, how many innocents will die and suffer, which is a very real thing even today. While this machine is clearly immoral and wrong, you can see why it thinks this way. All while hearing this, we're listening to my personal favorite video game soundtrack ever, a song simply titled Mandas, a grander and more epic version of the song we heard in the church about halfway through the game. I know I say this at the end of literally every video I make, but thank you so much for watching this far. After making the videos on the Outlast series, I've gotten way more attention than I ever thought I would get, and subsequently a lot of good ideas for other games to cover. And while I already have a few titles in mind, Outlast Trials, I do still tend to consider suggestions, so feel free to let me know any games you want me to try. Anyways, if you did enjoy this video and you want to support me, then feel free to subscribe or leave a like or something. This game is really good and you should try it.